Welcome to another episode of Rose Resource Room. Today I'm here with one of our CHAP speakers from the 2025 convention, and I'm so delighted to just learn more about her journey to homeschooling and what the Lord has her doing today. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Definitely.
Beautiful. So before we jump in, I'd like to challenge you to introduce yourself. And the challenge is you cannot share a title, you cannot share a role. So you can't be mom, you can't be all your accolades. You can do that later, but just tell us who you are at the core of what makes you you, and then you can tell me all the amazing things you've done and accomplished.
I like the question. I would say at my core, I am a woman seeking the heart of God. And that has allowed me to grow in obedience. It has allowed me to grow in relationship with my husband. And it has allowed me to grow as a reflection of who the Lord is calling me to be. So I'm excited about the growth. I'm excited about the walk, and I'm excited about the journey.
Beautiful. Okay, so now you get to tell us all the things. So you're a wife, you're a mom, you can tell us all about your titles, your educational background, and all of whatever you want to share.
Okay, so I am a child of Mary and a grandchild of Catherine and Callie, and the great grandchild of Mama Joe. And I say all of that because all of those women in my life kind of brought me to where I am now. Their faith walk, how they handle stress in the home, all of those things are a part of me. And so, in that, I've been married for it'll be 42 years actually next week.
Oh,
So that's a beautiful
congratulations.
thing. It's a very beautiful relationship. And out of that marriage, we have a beautiful family. We have five grown adult children, 18 grandchildren. And I was told the fact that my children want to have so many children testifies that we did a great job. So I'm going to own that
Right.
accolade and just embrace the life that we have right now with our grandchildren. And my journey right now, Ro, is I really have felt led to take my life experiences, my lived experiences, if you will, the skills that I have acquired, having a bachelor's in psychology, my master's is in business administration. But along the way, I did a lot of training in mental well-being.
Hmm.
And so the two books that I'd like to highlight as we're talking today, one is From Stress to Strength, really recognizing our adverse childhood experiences and how they continue to show up and how we can
Hmm.
manage those. And the other book I wrote is Rising Above the Solvable Worries of Life, a guide to letting your light shine beyond the darkness. And both of those really focus on, God made us as wonderful beings. And but in that, and not even a but, and in that creative process, the body knows how to protect itself. And so in certain situations, the body's going to respond and react to certain things. It's going to recall certain things. But the good thing on that is, particularly in the book, you talk about that. And then the second part is really our spiritual walk. How do we reflect and seek the Lord to get us through all the things that the body just naturally does as we walk this earth? And so I am excited about that because it was a journey that took quite a few years.
Hmm.
I'm assuming maybe with your podcast, it was an idea, however many months or days or years before it actually happened. And so that's kind of where I am with the book. It was a guided step, and I'm walking the journey. So, yeah.
So you wrote these books recently, right? After your homeschooling journey is what I'm getting at.
After the homeschooling journey, yes, indeed. And in the second book, I even reflect on that of one of the experiences that a homeschool and we were having a conversation. And, just as a homeschool parent, what it's like to really want the best for your child, what it's like to protect your child from everything else that does not agree with what's going on in your household. And so we were having that conversation. And we were like, wow, it's overwhelming because the words to express the emotions that come with that are hard to find. And so she used the word nebulous, which I kind of reference on the back side of the book. As like it is really hard to kind of capture in words the desires that we have for our children. And
Hmm.
so taking that into account, our homeschool journey as a family began. And honestly speaking, we were in a car riding down. I can still picture it now, but we were in a car riding down a road in Baltimore County. And we would had some other friends that were homeschooling, and we were debating on what to do. Both of ours at that time, we had two. They were in a Christian school,
Hmm.
but we just felt led that something was missing.
Okay.
And so in our conversation, I was like, oh, but that means it'll be like with us like all day. And that was a conviction that I just could not shake. And, that went through my head, it went through my heart. It just was like, okay, I can't shake this. And so we
Hmm.
pulled them out in March of that Christian school. And they were in first and third grade at that time. And so we homeschooled those two until they got into ninth and 10th grade. And then our other three, for whatever reason, we have this 5.5 year gap between those two and the next three. And I think the Lord was like, you don't know what you're talking about because the plan for us was to have four children 2 years apart. And
Right,
we have five, but I think, and I'm going to embrace the Lord's guidance, and we weren't going to be able to handle that many like that. So we learned through the first two, and then we have this 5.5 year gap, and then boom, the next three came. Uh, like clockwork as planned. And so the next three we homeschooled, and after that, I was the identity of a homeschool mom. It's like, all the things that come with that. Not being a part of the world was kind of like, oh yes, I can do this. But the funny thing is there came a point, in all honesty, where financially, it's like we need to make changes. And so that was hard for me because we had the conversation of like, babe, I think it's time for you to kind of bring in some income. And I was like, okay. And so, that was a battle. That was really more of a
right,
mental battle,
right.
because it was going to be changing my identity,
Mhm.
as a homeschool mom, as a homeschool family. But I went into the same school that my three went into.
Okay.
And so I just followed them into the school, which was very eye-opening because I got to see internally what the school system is like. And so that was eye-opening, but it also allowed me to one, guide them even better, as they are walking their path and their journey in the world, because I got to see what they come up against. I got to
Correct.
see what challenges there are. I got to see what is put into their heads. And so that also too for me was still a homeschool journey on both sides, because I got to see what it's like here and then bring it home and say, okay, this is how you need to respond to all these different things. And they have grown up to be beautiful families. They have grown up to one of my daughters homeschools her. She has six. She's homeschooling hers. My other daughter, which is up there near CHAP, she has seven, but she's taking the same path. She'll be homeschooling one, but she works within the school system up in New Jersey. So they're kind of on similar paths, my girls are. And so it's just really nice to see. It's just yeah, the Lord is working. The Lord is truly working in our lives.
Yeah, I have a similar story because my older two boys, I have three boys, not five kids. I have three boys, and the older two are 2 years apart. And then my husband and I thought we were just done. And 6 years later, we welcomed our third son. So I completely
Mm-hmm.
understand what you're saying in terms of, you're in your rhythm and then you have that gap and you're like, okay, what's going on? So we just kind of started over. Um,
Yeah.
the youngest babies too. But the reason I asked you that question is a lot of times I hear people talk about homeschooling. They share that it's definitely for the children, but there's so much in it for us as mothers. So
Oh,
when you started
yes.
talking about the fact that you wrote this book after the experience, it made me think about how homeschooling has helped you fully live out your God-given purpose, but also how much you learned about yourself and your relationship with God during this journey.
And you know what you said is for the children, because what I did also grasp from just being with them is how they learn. And it's so important, when you talk about how they learn and how you can teach to their way of learning versus being in the in the public school, the private school, the Christian, whatever that school is, with a group of others. And so that was part of our challenge a little bit, because my son, which is our oldest, he just has this innate natural ability for music, not my gift, not my wheelhouse. And so having that, his way of learning was very different than the
Mm,
way the books were instructing me to teach him. So there were moments of frustration, and this is particularly in math. And so in his creative way of learning, it's like, okay, just do this, the very rigorous structure of what math is, just one, two, three. And he wasn't getting, we were using sacks in math. And so it's like, so my husband was like, well, what's the problem? I'm like, I don't know. He's not getting it with me. And so he sat down with him, and they would go this roundabout way, well, to get to the answer. And my son was happy, my husband was happy. And I'm like, why don't you just do this?
it doesn't take
Like,
all that.
why do all of this? But it was it was
That's what he
the way
needed.
he learned to do that. And so for me, that was just another way of saying, okay, each of the five, and I think we all know this from birth, probably even in the womb, they are all very different. And
Hmm.
so homeschooling for me allowed me just to see how they learn, even into adulthood. I can say this to that one. I cannot say this to this one, even as adults. And
Right.
so
They're wired
um,
differently.
yeah, most definitely. Definitely. And so that was another thing that I really appreciated about homeschooling, just really knowing my children and not projecting what I think I know, but just really seeing them, how they interact, how they respond, their looks, all of that. That's not filtered, in the schools. It's not filtered by all the messaging that may come. And I know one example, something was on. I don't even remember the name of the show, but I know they made the comment about limiting your family size. And I was like, what was that? And so we ended, that show really quickly, but just being in the same space with them just allows direction, a better direction on what is acceptable in terms of the dynamics of our family, dynamics of our household. And I think homeschooling really does that for a family.
Mhm.
And I think homeschooling really prepares, our children to be able to cognitively reflect on what's coming at them a lot better than just being out there where everything comes at you and everything's supposed to be acceptable.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that. There's this joke in the homeschool community where a woman will say, homeschooling is the best decision for the children and the worst decision for the mom. And then there's this other running joke where someone will say, why would any sane person stay home with their kids when a big yellow bus will come pick them up and whisk them away
Mhm.
for 8 hours? So the reason I bring that up is because of what you just shared and you talked about turning stress into strengths. Like, what would you say to the woman who feels fully convicted that she is supposed to have her children at home, but she feels like she's doing it or sacrificing her own well-being?
Ooh. That's a very good question, and threw me for a loop when you said sacrificing her own well-being, because if she really feels led
Mm-hmm.
to be homeschooling her children, I think the conflict is very different if someone is led to do something, but it's impacting their mental well-being. I
Mm.
think that really requires some quiet time with the Lord. I really think it takes some prayer.
Yeah.
And part of that, if it is truly a couple on the same path, I think it also requires that conversation. So any external stress that may come can be, you know, mitigated, if you will, in conversations with the husband. It can be mitigated in conversations depending on the age of the child, what that is. And then to start out slowly. Okay, we're going to do this. Maybe start out in the summer when school is closed and say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is how we're going to begin so that you can learn what their learning style is, so that you can learn some curriculum, so that you can learn, okay, here are places we can go to teach this. Just kind of build the strategy of what your homeschool is going to be like. Because for me, when we first started, I was trying to follow the school schedule. And when we had our last one at let's see, we were in it, yeah, number five. He was unexpected for one. And then for two, I think it was while I was trying to potty train, I think was the situation. And I just remember it's like, okay, this is not working. Trying to do the school on this schedule, and I was like, oh, this is like our school. We're going to name our school. We're going to create our own schedule. So it may not happen from 7 to 12 or whatever those hours that were initially planned as a schedule. We're going to make it work so that it's not stressing the household. We're going to make it work to fit our needs. And so if it's a day where we're doing history, and we did a unit study, we did the Reba curriculum. I don't even know if that's still out there anymore. But we did a unit study. So if we were reading a book and it focused on architecture, we are going to go get in the car. We're going to drive into Baltimore because we don't have a lot of old history up here where I live. So we're going to drive into Baltimore and just find all the different columns that we can find. Find the iconic columns, find the Corinthian columns, find all the columns that we can find, and go down to a cathedral because very far and few cathedrals in America, generally speaking. But there was one in Baltimore. So just kind of get out and go if it gets to be a very stressful day. But there's so much more that can be done in homeschooling. And if someone is so led to do that, there's different ways to kind of manage that stress. If it just means a road trip, a day trip, and just use the tools that we have within our homes.
Mm,
Just bake a cake for
right.
math, whatever that is. So, yeah, but I really think it does involve a conversation with the better half, the other half, to make sure you're on the same page.
I appreciate that response because there's a quote, I don't remember who says it, but it's something along the lines of if you fail to plan, then plan to fail. And what I'm hearing you saying is that if you're in the trenches and this journey or decision to say yes to God feels like it's a detriment to your own self, then maybe you're lacking strategy. Like I know so many people, and this is not in homeschooling, where, they're about to take something on and they're like, I'm just going to wing it. And a lot of
Mm.
times, if you're winging it, it's because you don't have a strategy or you haven't had that conversation. So I'm not saying that once you talk to the Lord and talk to your husband and then have a strategy, everything goes smoothly and the devil is Roman, right? So there are going to be things happening. But what I'm really hearing you saying is we need to have a strategy and we want to have a schedule. So I'll give you a moment to respond to that, but also if you can share, how do you balance structure and flexibility? Because I was that mom who thought it was one or the other, where it's either you're rigid and we're following the school schedule and you're sitting at your desk and we're doing from whatever time the school is in session to whatever time it ends, or okay, we're going to go with the flow. And I feel like that balance is hard to find. So I know that's a lot. So how do you find that balance? And what are your thoughts on just everything I shared?
For me, finding balance is realizing, okay, yes, I have planned. Yes, I have a strategy. No, it's not working today. And to really accept that, okay, it is not working today, but there is tomorrow. There's later this evening, and that for me just kind of takes a little bit of the stress off. And I think that the thing about for me homeschooling, and even for me in this part of my life where I am working my own schedule, if you will, um, that you have the liberty uh, to be somewhat carefree. I think planning lets the children in that homeschool setting know, okay, there is a plan, but if it doesn't go right, it is perfectly okay. If I know, just to use some examples, I know we were doing the plagues and we were trying to make the boils. And use gelatin or jello or something. I don't remember what it was, but it just was not happening like the instructions said. But for us and our family, it's like, okay, we tried it.
Mhm.
Didn't quite come out right, but it was a nice failed activity. No harm done. All right. And so I think that's the way to help manage that. It's no harm done. You
Mhm.
just regroup, try it again, and just start over. If that method didn't work, if that strategy didn't work, try another one.
Right.
So, and the other part of that is I think bringing the children's ideas into the mix so that whatever you have planned, if it's their idea, they don't even know it went wrong. because you're making their idea work. And
Right.
so that kind of helped
Yeah.
me. It helped me.
Yeah. And I'm also hearing that it's a mix of personality and wisdom. A lot of times we get into things and we're so uptight. I I can flow between type A and type B. Like if I'm traveling somewhere, there's some times when I'm like, okay, we have all the hotels booked, we have everything, we know what we're doing in each day. And there are other times I'm like, let's go book a hotel, we figure it out when we get there, right? So in my homeschool journey, it can be the same way where I'm like, okay, we're gonna do things in blocks. It may not start at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m., but this is the block that we're working on. And then after lunch, we have another set of things that we're doing in this block. And then I have the days when I'm like, okay, guys, so this is what we're doing. We're starting here and like everything's so regimented. So I feel like a part of it is personality because what you're saying is relax. It is not that serious, right? It's you do an activity, it doesn't work out the way that it was supposed to. Everything is a lesson. That in itself is a lesson.
It, and I'm glad you said that because that in itself is truly a lesson. You know, we try to do one where we were making hot air balloons. That was another one that didn't quite work, as the instructions said. But again, it was a lesson of just learning to accept failure,
Mm,
one, and two, just try it. And not everything goes as planned, not everything works well. And that I think sets us up as children for a very great foundation, a real firm foundation, because the Lord just said, it is not a perfect world. It's y'all's fault, but it's not a perfect world. Because there's going to always be the poor, there's going to always be war, there's going to always be challenges. And recognizing that fact for me is a level of peace to like whatever comes, Lord, I know to expect these things because it is not a perfect world. And
mm,
my peace is not in this world and the things that happen in this world, but my peace lies with the Lord. And He is so gracious to forgive us. And so that's kind of what we hoped to deliver to our children, that peace that, you know, whatever. Whatever, just you spilled the milk. Okay, clean it up.
right.
You're not gonna let it sit there. So, there's discipline in everything, but I don't think there has to be that challenge of failure overtaking or overwhelming us because
Um,
there's a new day.
That's a very balanced and harmonious approach to life in general. And then as you were talking earlier, you talked about kind of turning your stress into your strengths. Are there any daily or weekly habits that you yourself use that have ground you in the joy and peace that you talk about and that you exude?
Ooh, um, if I may, and this was a stressful moment just this past weekend. We went to see an artist, a beautiful Christian young lady, making her way in delivering delivering the Lord's word through her song. And I've been following her for a while, and I was like, "Oh, we're going to see her in person, and I would love to give her a gift." So I was going to give her the book, and my husband has a ministry that I know she's also connected to. And as we were leaving, we're trying to rush to beat the traffic, the DC, Virginia traffic, and I left the gift here at the house. But before we were too far from the house, I remembered that I left it. But for whatever reason, didn't ask my husband to turn around. So we get there, and it was a very intimate setting, and a real opportunity to meet this woman. And I said, but I don't have the gift. And I was really stressing. And the reason I was stressing because I felt it as an opportunity to give something to someone who has given to me from afar. And I was like, okay, Lord, I blew that opportunity. I blew that moment because He does open up doors and He does give us opportunities. And I was like, oh, I blew that one. And I was stressed and I was very disappointed that I disappointed the Lord because He had opened up this door for me. So I was like, okay, well, that opportunity is gone. However, through the technology that we have, she does have her own Facebook group. It's like, oh, I could just send the electronic link to her and because I was stressing about that, and I was like, there has to be another way. And so I had to pray. I was like, Lord, I'm just giving this to you. I'm asking for forgiveness that the opportunity came, the door was open, and I was too fearful to walk through it, which I think is why I was like, I'm not turning around. He's not going to receive me. And so those are the thoughts that ruminate in my
Right?
head. And I was like, okay, Lord, so here's another way that I can get this to her and be at peace that I've taken the extra effort of the things that I know to do or am able to do and do that. So I think when things come up, again, they're not going to always work well. But I do think if there are other options that we can choose, to then follow through on that next option, follow through on that next step. Because I do, truly believe that he does open doors for us if we are willing to follow through. So, yeah.
I really appreciate your transparency and sharing that because it's not always easy to be vulnerable. It's easy to just come and say, here are the top five things to do, step one, step two, step three, but just showing, that life is all about perspective and it's all about pivoting. Like if it's one thing the pandemic taught us is we're not in control and things may not go as planned. So I really appreciate you walking us through just like what that looked like for you and how you were able to pivot and not beat yourself up. So you took accountability for what was happening, inside your head, but then you didn't beat yourself up. You said, okay, now it's time to move on. What's plan B? So I really appreciate you walking us through that.
Thank you. Thank
Is
you.
there anything else you'd like to share with us? I've asked you a ton of questions. Is there anything on your heart, any kind of lesson learned, wisdom, anything that you just feel led to share before we close out?
My lessons learned roll again from my mother, from my grandparents, from my great grandmother is trouble will come. And I believe if we know the Lord truly in our heart, there's just a peace that He does take that from us. Really does take that from us. And so I don't have a lot of words to put around that because it's just the Holy Spirit working. And I just have to give credit to the Holy Spirit that's just there. And it's like, okay, just rest in that because I do believe in that and that's my experience and that's all I can share is my experience with the Holy Spirit does provide that peace that truly does pass all understanding because you mentioned COVID and even during that time my husband and I both were without any income,
Oh, wow.
but we would come together and we would come together in prayer and we know that Lord you are a provider and so without any income we lost nothing. We were fed as we normally are fed. Our house still here. We were still just able to live as we live and just give those burdens to the Lord. And that just allowed us to live with great expectation that we were cared for by the Lord. And so, um, yeah, that was a journey. That was definitely a journey. And I tell my husband, no, that was a test. But anyway, that's another story. but, but but yeah, God is really good. And I am so grateful that as he left and his prayer was like, don't take them, leave them here because they can do a lot. And so I'm glad that you were here, sharing the Lord's work, sharing, your journey, and thank you for having me here to join you in that. I would say the only other thing though is just yeah, I don't know if there's a link that I can provide you for the book, but my hope is that the book will go out to others because I have heard from others that it has been life changing for them because it does allow you to look at yourself, look at the body as God has made it, because it is awesome.
Mhm.
But how to also take that and recognize that the Lord is with us and what our walk with the Lord looks like, um, and walking in that peace. So that's it.
Praise God. Thank you so much for sharing. Throughout the entire conversation, as we talked about like turning your stress into strengths, what I kept hearing you say is, I'm pointing you back to Jesus. I'm pointing you back to your covering of your husband, your covering of the Lord. Trust God. So like that's what it sounds like to me as the recipe. If you're stressed, go talk to Jesus. If you're stressed, go talk to your husband. So thank you for, sharing your experiences and just reminding us of the importance of communication, the importance of covering, and the importance of just being spiritually fed.
Oh, Likewise,
It's my
likewise. Thank
pleasure
you so
having
much.
you. Thank
Yeah.
you.